So this guy, his name's Dave, and Dave's girlfriend just unalived his other girlfriend. So Dave has been casually dating this woman for about 6 months. Her name's Liz. And they're dating, but it's nothing serious. But then one day, he meets another woman on a dating site. A woman he had seen before in the auto shop he works at. Let's call her Crazy. And Dave thinks Crazy is fine. So Dave and Crazy meet up and they go out and they have a really good date. And they immediately end up hanging out back at Dave's apartment. And then later, as Crazy is leaving, Liz shows up. She had stopped by unannounced to pick up something she had left at Dave's apartment. And neither woman appears to really care that the other one's there, nor do they say anything, because none of them are dating Dave exclusively, so it's no big deal. But then, over the next 2 weeks, Dave and Crazy start spending a lot of time together, and she starts crashing at his place at night. But then one day, while Dave's at work, Crazy texts him something that's way out of character. He gets a text from her saying she thinks they should move in together. And Dave's immediately like, nah. And that's when Crazy just snaps. She's like, fine, I hate you. I'm dating someone else. I don't want to see you anymore. Go away. And Dave's like, whatever. But then a couple of days after that, he starts getting more texts and emails from Crazy. And she's cursing him out and just saying really awful things. So Dave, he just tries to move on. And he continues to date Liz. But then Liz starts getting harassing messages from Crazy too. And they're insulting and they're threatening her. And one day she comes home to find from Dave spray painted in her garage. So Crazy's just going all out. But then Liz comes home one day to find her house burned down. And not only that, the fire unalived all her pets. 2 dogs, a cat, and a snake. And immediately Liz lets the firemen know. This fire was set by Crazy. So at this point, Dave is shook. I mean, this is getting out of control. And so he eventually gets himself a pew-pew, just in case. So all this harassment goes on for about 2.5 years, with them getting over 15,000 emails and 50,000 texts. And eventually they get detectives to start looking at this so that they can piece it all together. So detectives look at it, and here's the strangest thing they find. Crazy's been texting people from her phone and stuff this whole time. But no one has seen her in 2.5 years. Not her friends, not her family. No one's seen her since she was dating Dave for those 2 weeks. She hasn't answered any calls. She didn't show up to a wedding she was supposed to go to. And most concerning, in the past 2.5 years, there's been 0 activity on her bank account. So detectives start thinking, maybe Crazy's dead. And if she is dead, then who's sending all these emails and texts? And then soon after that, one day, detectives get a call from Dave. And he is freaking out because someone stole that pew-pew he got. Now Liz thinks it might have been Dave's ex who stole it. This woman, Amy. So Liz stops pointing fingers at Crazy and starts pointing fingers at Amy, saying Amy must have been the one who took the pew-pew. And then Liz goes and she files a complaint against her, saying she's really the one who's been harassing them all these years. But detectives have already started to get suspicious. And not of Amy, and not of Crazy, who they suspect is already dead, but they're getting suspicious of Liz. They start thinking maybe 2.5 years ago, after Liz found out that Dave was also dating Crazy, Liz then went and unalived Crazy and stole her phone. And then maybe for 2.5 years, Liz has been texting people pretending to be Crazy, sending harassing messages and emails to Dave and blaming it on Crazy, and then sending harassing messages to herself and blaming it on Crazy. Maybe Liz graffitied her own garage and even burned her whole house down and blamed it on Crazy. Maybe Crazy wasn't crazy at all. She was a normal woman who was dating Dave for about 2 weeks and then was unalived by a jealous Liz. So that's the theory detectives have. But then the next night, Liz calls 911 and she's at a local park and she says she's been shot in the leg. So an ambulance comes and takes her to the hospital and she tells police it was Amy who came to the park and confronted her with a pew-pew and shot her. But police investigate, and Amy has a solid alibi. So detectives are like, wait a minute, did Liz shoot herself and then blame Amy? So they go and they come up with a plan to trick Liz into giving them information about all these crimes she's committing. So they go to Liz and they're like, hey, we believe you about Amy, but we need your help in getting her to incriminate herself. Can you give us any info? So Liz goes home and she types up fake email confessions from Amy, and she sends them to herself. And in these fake emails, she makes Amy admit to shooting Liz in the leg, and she makes Amy admit to stabbing Crazy 3 or 4 times and then putting her body in a trash bag. So Liz types up these fake emails and then she gives them to the detectives. And detectives are like, wow, this is great. Can you get us more info? So then Liz goes and she makes more fake email confessions, pretending to be from Amy. And in these fake emails, she details exactly how she unalived Crazy in the passenger seat of Crazy's car. So detectives immediately go and search Crazy's car. And in the passenger seat, underneath the seat cover, sure enough, they find traces of Crazy's blood. Liz had indeed unalived Crazy years ago and is now trying to pin the murder on Amy by writing fake email confessions. So police arrest Liz, they charge her with first-degree murder, here's her mugshot, she goes to trial, and she gets sentenced to life. Shout out to Iowa and Nebraska. So one day, this woman goes for a jog around her neighborhood, when suddenly, bam, an SUV pulls up out of nowhere and two women get out. And they both have pew-pews, and they grab her and they force her into the SUV. And the SUV speeds away. Now the woman who was kidnapped, she's a normal suburban mom, her name's Sherry. And on that day, Sherry doesn't show up to pick up her kids after school. And her husband, this guy, Keith gets worried and he starts freaking out. And he calls the police and then boom, a search gets underway. And suddenly everyone's looking for Sherry. And this story is all over the media. And they announce a reward for any information about her disappearance. Someone sets up a GoFundMe to help with the search and it raises over $50,000. But unfortunately, weeks pass and no one has heard anything. And there's no sign of what might have happened to her. Until 22 days go by, and it's 4 a.m., and a woman driving along the highway, she spots a disheveled person on the side of the road. So she calls police. So police come, and they find it's Sherry there on the side of the highway, and she looks terrible. She's seriously beaten up, she's starved down to 87 pounds, all her hair is chopped off, and strangely, she has a Bible verse branded on her shoulder blade. And of course, police know exactly who she is. They know she's been missing, it's been all over the news. So they bring her in and they question her a few times, trying to figure out exactly what the hell happened to her during those 22 days. But Sherry, she's being really odd about the whole thing. She's not telling them a lot. But after a few sessions with her, she eventually gives them this story. She says that day she was out jogging, two Latina ladies pulled up in an SUV, and they held her at gunpoint, and they put her in the SUV, and they drove her to some shady location, and there they chained her up. Now from this story, police get enough of a description of the kidnappers to draw these two sketches. But unfortunately, their faces are covered, so the drawings aren't much help. But police hear this story, and they keep wondering, why the hell did the kidnappers burn a Bible verse into her skin? And so Sherry tells them something, but she keeps changing the details of the story. And it's especially weird because this Bible verse basically says anyone who kidnaps someone else should be put to death, which seems like a weird thing for actual kidnappers to burn into someone's back. So of course, by this point, police are suspicious of this whole thing. So they do DNA testing on Sherry's clothes from when she was taken. And the tests show that there's male DNA on the underwear she was wearing. But it sucks because that DNA doesn't match with anyone in their criminal database. Double until. At this point, about 4 years have passed since she was abducted. But then, out of nowhere, pow! Their DNA finally links with someone in their database. And basically, the results show that while they can't find a match for this DNA, they did find that it's close to someone else's DNA in the database, meaning that it's probably their relative. So they investigate, and they find that this relative is related to this guy, James. And James just happens to be Sherry's ex-boyfriend. So police find James, and they confront him, and he quickly crumbles, and he tells police that basically Sherry must have kidnapped herself. So here's what really happened. Sherry goes to the jogging track that day, and she randomly calls James to come pick her up. And when he does, she leaves her phone and her ear pods there where she was jogging, so it will look like someone abducted her. James then drives Sherry 9 hours away to his place to live with him. There, she starves herself to lose a bunch of weight, she cuts off all her hair, she beats herself up, and she has James brand a Bible verse on her shoulder blade for some reason. Allegedly, Sherry was just tired of her suburban life, or maybe she just wanted attention. It isn't actually entirely clear why she faked her own kidnapping. But after 22 days of living there with James, she decides she's done with this whole plot, and that kidnapping herself was a terrible idea. So she suddenly asks James to drive her roughly 9 hours back near her home in Northern California and drop her off on the side of the highway. And that is where the police found her. But here's the craziest part. According to James, he wasn't even in on the whole scam. He had no no idea she was faking her own kidnapping. Allegedly, when she called him to come pick her up that day, he thought she wanted to be with him and that she was just running away from her family and her abusive husband. Which, by the way, it turns out her husband Keith was never abusive. She made that up too. So anyway, police arrest Sherry. I don't have a mugshot, but here's what she looks like in real life. And also, here's what James looks like in real life. Ugh. And so Sherry goes to court. She pleads guilty to all this. And she's sentenced to 18 months in prison, and she's ordered to pay back all the money her hoax cost the state, which is around $300,000. While James wasn't charged with any crime at all. Also, 2 days after she pled guilty, her husband Keith filed for divorce. Good for him. Shout out to California.